awesome.
Yeah, I made you some since we're doing 11sies. You know?
Oh, thank you.
I thought it'd be appropriate.
Yeah, thank you.
Tea,
That's really nice.
Yeah, hope you like it. Oh, that was rude.
As you can see, we are reviewing the brand new Kickstarter game, 11sies, that just shipped to backers. And while I go wash my mouth out of the foul taste of those cubes,
They don't taste like sugar cubes,
No,
folks.
good
You can
God.
attest.
Thank you for serving that to me.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Why don't you tell people what the game is about while I go eat a bar of soap?
Because that'll help. Sure. So, 11sies, it's a small 2 to 4 player card game featuring elements of hand management. There are special abilities and breakfast tea. So
You love your breakfast tea.
I love my tea.
This is a game all about tea.
Yeah, I actually have a thing for games about beverages for some reason. Huge fan of viticulture. Huge fan of Viva Java. Like, 11sies, all about it.
You backed Brewcrafters?
I've backed Brewcrafters as well, so if it's got a drink in it, I'm all about it. But this one, so backed this a while back, and I think it just shipped to backers last week, maybe the week before that if you're in Europe. So, super excited to check this one out.
It's from Adventureland Games, the same people who did a bunch of other small card games. Sushi Go, which
Archaeology.
If you watched our Best of 2013, you saw that we really liked Sushi Go last year.
Yeah, and actually, it's I think it's one of the guy's brothers who designed 11sies, and his brother happened to run Adventureland Games, and so he put it out, which is pretty amazing. So anyway, if you want to talk a little bit about.
Sure. In the game, each player plays 2 to 4, as we said. Each player is going to get a deck of 11 unique cards. They're going to then shuffle and then deal 8 of those cards face down into 2 rows of 4, representing their table spread. Because in this game, it's all about how competitive you make your 11 a.m. tea celebration party lunch thing.
Yeah, you want your spread to be the best.
Yes. So you're going to deal 8 out, and then the remaining 3 cards that you don't deal face down to the table are then taken into your hand, and that's going to be your 3-card hand for starting the game.
Right. So the interesting mechanic about this game is that each card, like the numbered cards 1 through 11, have a specific spot in your spread where they're supposed to go. So there's a couple things you could do on your turn. You could either play a card from your hand, like say you have the number 3, you would put that in the number 3 spot, and then you would take the card that's face down and put that back into your hand. To represent that. Then once you play that 3 card to your spread, whatever the action is on the card, you go through that action. And those actions can vary. I mean, there's some that say pass a card to the player on the right, or look at a player's kitchen, which is their hand, and you can swap for a card if you want. So it's a really interesting dynamic. It's kind of like a little puzzle game, I think.
Yeah, you're trying to find the right spot for the right cards as you draw them and swap them with your spread, or get them from other players, or swap with other players.
Right.
Once you have 4 cards face up in your spread, you would be allowed to play your 11sies card if you have it. That's the number 11 card, obviously, and that will end the round. Whoever has the most spoons showing on their face-up spread cards will get a certain number of sugar cubes.
Right.
Based on being in first place, and then second place will get a certain amount, and third place will get a certain amount, and so on. And you're going to play a series of rounds until someone gets to 7 cubes, and whoever gets to 7 cubes will be the winner.
Yep. So it's pretty simple mechanics.
Yeah, we said this a little bit in the unboxing video, but the game was inspired by Love Letter, and it's got a very Love Letter-ish design. It is play a card, do the ability, take a card. Right,
yeah.
That is the central mechanic of the game. It's a little more complex than Love Letter, I would say, and it's a little more involved in the sense that you have 11 cards rather than just 2. You know, so but it's very much in the Love Letter DNA, Love Letter family of type of game.
Yeah, definitely reminiscent of that. There's also a mini expansion that shipped with this game, and these are the special guest cards. So we've already explained how you have a certain spread and you have certain cards that will be face up or face down depending on where you are in the game. But these special guests, they want a specific thing for their morning tea, and so say they want your milk, your tea, and biscuits to be served. Then once you have all of those cards face up, those specific cards, you can then flip up your special guest card, and then that will give you 2 extra teaspoons towards the end of scoring.
Bonus points.
Bonus points, yes. Yeah. And that can never be traded with anyone, and even if there's one card that makes you There's one card that allows you to flip another player's card face down in their spread, but even if you've already played your special guest, that doesn't affect it. Like, you can keep it up.
Right,
still.
yeah. Once you earn it, it's sort of like a goal, an objective for players to like kind of strive for.
Yeah.
Because it's hidden, so when you take your special guest, only you know what it is, and so you kind of keep it secret, but it's a way for you to get some bonus points. So
Yeah. But yeah, it's very thematic.
says plays 30 minutes, plays in about 30 minutes on the box. That's right on
Totally.
from what we found.
Totally spot on. I feel like it'd be great for like parties, like having board game nights and stuff. It plays really quickly, and it's like really easy to teach too.
Yeah, good filler or opener at a game night.
Yeah, for
Between
sure.
game, someone's playing something that's lasting a little longer, and you're waiting for them to finish. You bust this out.
Yeah.
So you backed this on Kickstarter. So I guess tell me what you like about it, and did it live up to your expectations?
I think you actually sent me a link to this and said, it's tea, it's another drink, and it's a board game, you should back this. And I was like, oh my god, yes. I wasn't really sure what to expect. I didn't know until I'd already backed it and it was almost time for the game to ship that the designer was inspired by Love Letter, and I was really pleased to hear that. So at first I just thought it was just going to be like a really fun, light game about tea, and I was going to be like okay with that. I don't think I was expecting the level of like strategy that's actually involved, but that's like a pleasant surprise.
And positional strategy.
It's a very different way to play those games. I think we've actually talked about before, like we've talked about designing games and like wanting to have something where you have card games or deck builders or something where like placing your hand in a certain way like nets you certain points, and I feel like this did that, and I wasn't expecting that, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it's very nice. It's a very pleasant game. The box is very pleasant on the cover, and the art is very pleasant. It reminds me a lot of like a game that they would play in the novel Mrs. Dalloway, because the game The game is like sort of set in like 1920s like high society of Britain, and Mrs. Dalloway is the exact same setting, and so like just the art is very evocative of Mrs. Dalloway. So I had to read that book in college. So
the flavor text as well.
Yeah, the flavor text is very. You can't help but read the flavor text in a British accent.
Yeah. Oh no, this is gonna be bad.
Yeah. Pass the plates this way, dear. So that's the flavor text on the fine china card. I like that each of the cards is like a specific element on the table. Like the milk is a milk jug, and the sugar is in a little sugar pot, and the cakes and sandwiches are on like one of those fancy like multi-level like cake sandwich platter things.
Yeah, it's pretty neat at the end of a round to like look and see like what your spread like looks like. It's pretty funny. Like it's interesting, like the way when we've been playing this, I've always wanted to just keep going just to like get my spread like as awesome as possible, but that usually means you're not going to actually win the round, because you really need to like figure out when the best time is to like ring the little bell and call the game.
It's about setting up your spread, your tableau, and then cutting it off before anyone else has a chance to catch up to you. That's really like the strategy of this game. I actually I like that the card art reminds me of like old-timey comic books. Like comic books from like the 30s and 40s. It's got like that sort of like imprecise line art, that just is kind of like old-timey and quaint.
And there's like watercolor colors too. One thing that like we talk about sometimes is like card games that have too much information on the card or have it like looks jumbled. But I feel like all of these convey exactly what you need to know in a certain way, and it's all each piece of information is distinct enough to where it doesn't like overwhelm you with like what you need to do. So for a simple card game, I really think that the design of the cards is fantastic, spot on.
Yeah, and I like how the back kind of looks like a tablecloth.
Oh, I never thought of that. That's so true.
Yeah,
that's really smart.
Really smart.
Oh, that's adorable. Oh, that's amazing. So yeah, I mean, I was just really pleasantly surprised with how it played, like the graphics, how quick it played. It's very simple, but then also very complex at times. Like there's not many decisions you have to make on your turn, which I always appreciate, but then it also has a lot of depth to it. So I really loved it, but maybe it's not everyone's cup of tea.
Out. Get out.
I had to.
I really enjoy it too, but I do find a couple of things sort of at its core that I think are especially worth mentioning, because we are a channel about two-player games.
Yeah.
And this game in particular has a bit of an issue staying interesting when you're playing with only 2 players. And that is because most of the well, there's a couple reasons. Most of the card powers involve like passing or swapping cards with your opponent. And so when you play these cards, you're directly giving your opponent something that could help them. And the other side of that coin is because all of the cards are about swapping cards with your opponent, your opponent could play a card that forces you to have to give something to them, but on your very next turn you can play a card that allows you to take something from them, kind of nullifying the whole point of the mechanics of the game. And so the game feels a little pointless with 2 players to me. There's not a lot.
Pointless.
There's not a lot of.
I disagree.
It's kind of like playing something like Kittens in a Blender, or Love Letter with only 2 players, or Sushi Go with only 2 players, and that, like, yes, it's perfectly playable, and yes, it is a game with rules that you could play with someone else. But
come on.
But there's not a lot of like reason that you would. This game.
I love this game. I would play it all the time with you.
I really like it, but I think that it will shine with more players. I think it shines with 3 or 4. Specifically, I think with 4 it's probably really fun. And I think with 2 it's just kind of good. You know, it's kind of like, it's not something I would play like all the time with 2, and it's, you know, it's like playing Love Letter with 2 players. It's like, yeah, you could do it, but why? Why would you? You know, like,
because it's a great game.
Because it's way more fun with more. And I think this game is the exact same way. It's way more fun with more, I think.
Fair enough. I don't know that
there's a chaos that's missing with 2 players. Like the score, because
you're trying to make a best spread for tea. That's enough chaos for one person. Come on.
Because it's so back and forth with 2 players. Like,
yeah.
It's very hard for one player to get an advantage on the other player, and because so much of the game is about getting an advantage and then cutting it off with your 11sies card, like, it's hard for that to happen with 2 players. It just feels like you're kind of playing until one player or the other decides that they're kind of done with that round. Because you get into situations where you can't possibly catch up.
This is true. Okay, yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that it felt more like to me is that one person could have a couple really great cards in their opening hand, and maybe they like flip up their special guest really early or something. And if you had a bad opening hand, like say you had your 11sies card in your opening hand and you want to like bury that as quickly as possible, then you're already like behind the 8 ball and getting anything on your spread. And so if they're just putting down cards on their spread and it takes you a couple turns to get one thing down, then you're automatically behind. And there's only one card that allows you to flip a card face down on another player's spread, and you can only play that once. And like once the card's up, it's up, you know, unless someone else affects it. So without having that 3rd or 4th player, I can see where like that could be an issue. But I feel like that makes it like a different game. Like, it just means that the 2-player version is a little bit different, and I don't know that I would like that any less.
That's fair.
More.
That's fair. I find it less interesting, but I don't think it's a worse game.
Okay.
It's just not as interesting to me.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say one more thing. If you are going to play with 2, I would say play to 5 cubes, not 7.
Yeah.
Playing with 7 cubes with 2 players just seems a little bit on the long side. I think if you clock this game in around 15 or 20 minutes, which you'll get if you play with 5 cubes with 2 players, I think it's that perfect sweet spot that doesn't outstay its welcome.
That sweet spot.
Like like a poor guest at morning tea, it does not it will outstay its welcome if you play with 2 players and 7 cubes.
I disagree, but that's all right.
What do you give it?
I give it 2 big old sugar cubes out of 2 big old sugar cubes. I loved it.
Yes. I like so much about it. I like the aesthetic. I like the mechanics. And I like, just the presentation of it. But given the way that it handles at 2 players, I think I have to give it 1.5 out of 2. And I'm going to give it 1.5 shell-shocked World War I veterans coming to morning tea out of 1.5 shell-shocked World War I veterans coming to tea.
You gotta be all weird with the
It's from
symbols.
Mrs. Dalloway. There's a character from Mrs. Dalloway who's a World War I vet who's a bit screw loose. So
that's sad.
for all the literary folks out there you go. There's your Virginia Woolf hit for the week.
Amazing. Wow. I don't know what else there is to say except
That's it. It's a really fun game. Hopefully you'll be able to buy it in store soon.
Yeah. We don't have 11Zs or any semblance of 11Zs over here in the States, but now we do because we have the game. So maybe we can make that a thing. That'd be awesome. With that, I'm gonna go have some tea, but not with the fake wood and sugar cubes because apparently they don't taste very good.